Hello and welcome to Advancements in Managing Critical Power Infrastructure with Schneider Electric. I'm your host, Sydney Neely from the Channel Company. As businesses depend more on reliable power systems, understanding how to monitor and manage them has become crucial. That's where Schneider Electric steps in with their EcoStruxure platform. Joining me to share more is Larry Hann and Peter Keiver from Schneider Electric. Hey, Larry and Peter.
Hey, Sydney. Good afternoon.
Let's go ahead and dive right in with our first segment, the need for EcoStruxure and critical power infrastructure. Larry, can you start off by telling us what exactly is EcoStruxure and why is it essential for modern businesses?
Basically, EcoStruxure is our cloud-based monitoring and management software, which is designed to give visibility into the data center and the distributed edge for physical infrastructure. So that could be UPSs, PDUs, or cooling equipment. Now, to understand why it'd be important, we kind of take a step back and kind of look at what's going on from a macro perspective in the environment. So one of the things that's going on is that we're starting to see more and more data being migrated from the data center closer to the edge. In fact, Gartner had said by 2025, 75% of all data that's created will be done outside the data center. Well, what that means is that that technology that provide that data is actually being brought closer to us as consumers. It's actually going into environments that weren't really designed for IT. And actually the people in those environments are not technologists, so they're not really capable of supporting that. And then you have the dynamic within these companies where the resources that are available to go support that equipment is actually diminishing. So there's fewer people that actually have the capability to go and keep that IT up and running. But these companies are being asked to respond very quickly or in real time to their environment and trying to do more with less. So what's happening is those companies are actually starting to raise their hand and looking for help. So specific to what we're going to talk about today is they're going to partners that we work with to go ask them to do that. And really what EcoStruxure does is actually provides the platform for those partners to be able to help those customers to manage that technology, specifically the physical infrastructure, more effectively.
What happens when power infrastructure isn't properly monitored?
If you really think about the idea that physical infrastructure, the power is actually enabling all these things, if you're not looking or managing that, what happens is you start reacting to what happens in that environment. That will lead to downtime, which actually can drive costs out of the customer's model. They basically, they'll lose money because their business isn't running, but also actually affects productivity of their people. On the other side is that because they're not actually monitoring this, they're actually seeing an increase in their support costs because they have to do multiple truck rolls in order to go solve that problem. And really, all this is really preventable if they just had a better day two support strategy.
Larry, how does EcoStruxure come into play here? Can you explain how it helps mitigate those risks?
To get to that answer, I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the challenges that customers are facing. So when we talk to customers, a lot of things that they talk to us about is that they have a lack of visibility. In some cases, they don't even know what they have in their environment that's there to protect the equipment. And then if they do know what's there, in some cases, they don't actually know the health of that equipment. So is that, if the power did go out, is it going to actually work? Or what level of service coverage they have. So is it still, do we have a service plan? Is it still under warranty? They don't have the right tools to do proactive monitoring or management of that. And then even if they did know something's going to go fix it. So really what EcoStruxure does is actually enables us to actually help the customer solve all of those problems.
This brings us to our second segment, capabilities and benefits of EcoStruxure. What are the main features that make EcoStruxure stand out that partners can highlight to their clients?
In order to talk through the features, I'm just going to revisit what I just talked about as some of the key business challenges that customers are running into. So one of the things I talked about was visibility. So within EcoStruxure IT Expert, we are actually able to represent all of the devices that's in the customer's environment, as long as they're connected to the network, either through SNMP or Modbus. And that's actually represented in the inventory tab. So they can go click on that. And they can actually see by device type, by manufacturer, even by location, what they actually have in their environment today. And if they click on those devices, they can actually see some more attributes associated with that. The other thing we talked about is that the customers don't really have a good idea of like the health of their devices. So we actually have some reports in IT Expert that will actually give you UPS health and actually drill into battery wear, which is a dynamic analysis of the health of the battery. We also have a report that does device security. So actually tell them if their devices are vulnerable to potentially backdoors or hacking from a security perspective. We also have just recently launched a report specifically to sustainability, because we have some customers that are being asked to start reporting on that. And we have a report that actually help them understand the efficiency of their environment through sustainability. Another thing that we've talked about is just kind of that visibility or understanding what's going in the environment. And we actually have a tab that talks about alarms. It actually tells them what's going on with those devices, all the way from just informational alarms to critical alarms. We have another tab which actually provides the challenge of being able to manage remotely. We have a tab that's for remote management. And within that tab, we actually have firmware upgrades. So they can go and virtually update the firmware of their devices. We have device configuration. So they can actually go change the configurations, or if they have a standardization they want to push across their devices, they can do it through that feature. And then lastly, we've also built in the ability for them to recycle the power of those devices if they have the right power distribution unit. So these are things they can do remotely. Peter's actually in a minute going to go into the software and actually talk a little bit about, first of all, how we actually get that information into our system, and then actually show some of those features for you.
So to continue on with what Larry was just talking about and getting into more of the details around how this actually works with EcoStruxure IT software, we have a piece of software, very lightweight piece of software that sits behind a firewall in a virtual machine. It gets loaded onto a virtual machine, whether it's Linux or Windows, it doesn't matter. And it communicates, as Larry had indicated, via SNMP v1, v3, Modbus TCP, or Redfish protocol to your critical physical infrastructure devices. And then upstream, we have a very secure, encrypted outbound connection to the public cloud. We use Microsoft Azure, and that's where we view it from our data lake. So EcoStruxure IT Expert can be viewed from our data lake, either end user version. We also have a multi-tenant version that partners can use to manage their customers directly from our portal. A few things to keep in mind for our partners, and a value that we bring here is we're harnessing the power of AI and machine learning. We're actually driving a predictable recurring revenue stream, and we're making the lifecycle management much more efficient in terms of planning and budgeting. There's a number of different capabilities that we have for EcoStruxure IT Expert. Larry mentioned, a few of them, but in particular, our UPS battery health assessment report. That particular report is going to provide extensive information in terms of our UPSs. So it's going to not only give us an idea of how well our UPSs are performing, again, based on a number of different attributes. It could be battery temperature, the age of the UPS, the age of the battery itself, and then also the recycle time associated with going from public utility to battery backup. Those are kind of the factors. And then we come up with a score, and that score is typically 1 to 100. 1 to 33 is considered poor performance in terms of the UPS. 33 to like 66 is considered average. And we build out a color code system, and then it gives the partner the opportunity to go in and have those life cycle management conversations with their end customers, whether they are a managed service provider, that has this information directly via our multi-tenant portal, or whether the end customer, as a partner, you're buying and reselling those licenses directly to your end customer, and you're acting as the trusted advisor to provide this information back to the end customer at any point in time in the future. So that's the first of a few capabilities that we have. Additionally, as Larry had indicated, we also have a sustainability dashboard. And this is based on the European Union Energy Efficiency Directive. And this is a mandate that they have put in place to reduce greenhouse carbon gases by 55% by 2030. So one component of that is how efficient is your energy? How efficient are you operating your energy within a particular room, and an MDF closet, an IDF closet, as well as a data center? So there's two different metrics that we use to kind of measure the usage effectiveness and also the efficiency. One is PUE, and that's typically for measuring your effectiveness of your energy within a particular room, within a building, and then your data center infrastructure effectiveness or efficiency that really is directed more around the total usage of your IT equipment within a data center. So this is a good start for us. We are going to be providing in the future, the not too distant future, the ability to classify our embedded embodied carbon into our products and be able to, again, pull this information directly into IT Expert, user interface, and report on that as well going forward. So that's very valuable. And this changes the conversation that you would have as a partner to your end customer, because it's a unique differentiator for conversations that you're having with your end customer. Additionally, we also have a new tab that we've introduced called the Services and Warranty tab. And the Services tab is specific to the services that Schneider Electric would provide either to our end customers or to our partners. Services such as a remote 24/7 remote monitoring services, or in case of a partner that doesn't have let's say a network operations center, they want to have us manage their truck rolls and dispatch services. We can do that as well. And we can track that right inside our services and warranties dashboard. And that's across all of our device types. And we can look at different things like what's active, what's expired, what's not available. And again, we can proactively, as a partner, reach out to that end customer and have that life cycle conversation with them in terms of planning and budgeting. Additionally, we have warranty information that gets logged and tracked here. And again, all this information gets tracked on a weekly basis. It's our Salesforce database, and it gets reported into this user interface. And the warranties information is relative to factory warranties, extended warranties that might be applied to entitlements on the product. And we can take a look at that. And again, it gives you the ability as the MSP or the trusted advisor to go in and look at this and then have those frequent conversations with your end customer in terms of modernizing or upgrading their critical physical infrastructure. Now, one of the other things, or a couple of the other things that Larry had mentioned that are pretty important is what I call management controls and configurations. Firmware updates is a critical function, right? Because monitoring, admittingly, a lot of vendors can monitor. We're vendor agnostic, so we can monitor third-party devices. But what's really very important is the ability to do management controls and configurations, because that avoids having that partner having to go out on site and go to their customer location to remediate an issue. They can do it from a centralized console through our user interface of EcoStruxure IT Expert, and they can push firmware updates out via config INI file format to those network management cards to apply those updates. They can also do device configuration changes as well, whether it's a single device configuration change or it's a device configuration change that gets applied to multiple one-to-many devices. We can do that as well. So that's very, very important. And then the last, I think, very important capability that we have is our ability to remotely reboot, or power cycle, I should say. We can reboot as well, but power cycle our APC switch PDUs out in the field. So, if there's a router, or if there's a switch that's connected to it and that happens to have hung, there's an ability that we have to go into the tool here, and we can filter on those available device configurations for rack PDUs. We can click on the actual outlet itself And there's a number of different functions that we can perform to, again, remediate the issue from a centralized remote perspective, as opposed to having to physically go on site. And that translates to time and also dollars and resources.
Larry, when it comes to predictive maintenance and reducing downtime, what kind of benefits does this platform offer?
Peter just went through a number of different things that we provide as far as rich data to enable customers and partners to really get ahead of the management of their environment. So if you really think about predictive maintenance or anticipating downtime, you really need that data in order to do it. And some of the specific features that he had talked about or highlighted, one was the battery wear. Through that feature, which is driven by AI, and actually really looking back at our database of failures to really anticipate when that might happen. That comes into play a lot, actually. There's a number of customers that we've worked with that in the past, they would just traditionally do a battery replacement every 3 years. That was their corporate strategy. And when we asked them why, it was because they wanted to make sure that they didn't have battery failures. Well, through the predictive battery wear, we actually potentially help them extend that window from 3 years to 4 years or 5 years. And by doing that, instead, the money that they were going to spend on that battery replacement can now actually be used to be allocated to another project or something that might actually drive more value to their customers and drive more profitability for them. From that standpoint, by giving them data, they can predict when failure is going to be, and they can have a strategy which enables them to actually drive costs out of the support model. So that's one example. Another example, and I kind of touched on it, I know Peter didn't go into it, but within the inventory tab, we have some very significant sensor data. In fact, we can give a history all the way back to a year. And that data combined with the alarm data could be used to, one, anticipate a failure. So you start to see certain alarms that pop up. You can go back and look at the sensors and potentially identify the root cause of that and get ahead of it before there's failure. On the flip side, if you unfortunately did have a failure, you could go back and actually use that data to try and understand it. In a lot of cases, customers have the same setup in multiple locations. So if it happened in one location, they could go identify what drove that failure and then go and fix it at the other locations before that happened. So by doing that, again, it enables them to get ahead of potential downtime, which then drives, again, costs out of their support model because they're not doing multiple truck rolls. Because they can anticipate that, they maybe don't combine truck rolls with other stuff that they're doing management around with the switch or the servers or whatever else it might be. But the other thing is it also eliminates downtime because we're starting to anticipate that. So because of these things, now we're starting to enable them to be proactive in how they manage their environment as opposed to reacting to it, which we talked about before.
How does this platform assist in monitoring and managing the entire UPS lifecycle?
I'll just continue my theme around data and visibility. So, IT expert or EcoStruxure IT expert is the starting point. And that provides the foundation or the baseline of what's going on in that environment for those devices. And as Peter highlighted in his demo, we have the UPS health assessment and the device security assessment. Those two assessments combined enable us to understand kind of where we're starting from. And then it's really just a conversation with the customer around what they want to do around their day two support strategy and also what their budget looks like. In some cases, we could identify units that are actually even out of support life. So we wouldn't actually go send someone or provide a part for it, but they're not in a position to actually go upgrade that unit maybe for another year or two. So we actually have a service, which is on the back end or the end of the life cycle called a comprehensive protection plan, which will enable a customer to extend the life of that unit until they could actually go and get the budget to refresh it. More in the regular life cycle of the unit, we have just basic extended warranty plans. We'll provide parts for them in case something happened. We have our EcoStruxure comprehensive support plan, which is a combination of the parts, actually our NOC doing additional monitors. Think of it an extra set of eyes looking at those devices, and then helping with troubleshooting, and then actually deploying someone to go on site to actually go and actually do that service work. We also have assessments that we do. And then more importantly, if we get to a point where it's time for that modernization to actually replace that unit, we have a service around rip, replace, recycle. So we'll actually go in, take out the old unit, we'll recycle it responsibly, actually provide them a report of what happened to that carbon, back to that conversation around sustainability, and then actually put that new unit in. There's different components that we can mix and match. And really, we just sit down with the customer and talk to them about what they want to do. And then based off of their feedback, we then put together that life cycle strategy or plan to keep their business up and running.
To make sure EcoStruxure fits seamlessly into existing setups, could you explain how the platform integrates with current IT and OT systems?
Schneider Electric has acquired a number of different companies in a lot of different segments. We have tools, we have APIs, we have integrations that we currently have within the EcoStruxure IT expert platform. We also have our own REST APIs that are exposed and provided to our end customers, and they can access that information. And the reason why they'd want to access that information is they may not want to use necessarily our particular user interface, but they want to use a upstream remote monitoring and management platform where they want to use a third-party ticketing system like ServiceNow. They can take our APIs and integrate those very nicely into those systems. And then in addition to that, towards the end of this year, we are going to be providing a webhook alarm API, and that will help in terms of any kind of event-based changes that take place. So if there is an event that takes place where we trigger let's say a critical warning alarm, it will automatically send that up to one of those systems, or it could send it to a correlation tool, an IOPS correlation tool like Big Panda, and then Big Panda could handle it and send it directly up to either the ticketing system or the RMM platform. So that's kind of how it works today.
The features that we have today around APIs and how we actually share our data is actually a direct result of conversations we've had with our partners. We approach our interaction with the partners very collaborative and pull them for information on what they need from us in order to take this data that we're providing and make it meaningful for themselves. So Peter talked about the ServiceNow integration. We also just recently launched an integration into ConnectWise, which is a platform that a lot of the mid-market partners use. We continue to evaluate other platforms that we can provide, but then also to Peter's point, we're continuing to look at how we can improve our APIs to provide even more access to more of our rich data, so our partners can actually bring that into their dashboards that they create for their customers. So the thing I would say around the APIs is what you see today will continue to evolve, but it's our commitment to try and make sure that the data that we're aggregating is going to be available for partners to use within the tools that they want to use to bring that value to their customers.
You mentioned ConnectWise. Do you have an example of how you leverage the ConnectWise integration with an MSP?
We actually have a regional MSP that we're working with currently, and they actually have closed an opportunity with a women's athletic clothing retailer. They have 320 brick and mortar stores that have deployed our UPSs with our rack PDUs. They plan to expand that to 2,400 stores in the future. But some of the challenges that they had was, again, what Larry's already kind of hit on this, is absolutely no visibility into their lights out environments, and that the lights out environments being where their UPSs are, maybe in their MDF closets or at their stores, and they didn't have the resources to really know what to do with that critical infrastructure equipment. So that's the first thing. The second thing is if they ever had a problem, and they had problems with previous UPS vendors where they needed to reboot the devices, they would have to contact somebody, and then somebody would have to go out on site to really assist with that process. They also experienced outdated firmware, as Larry also mentioned, and that's very vulnerable to cyber attacks. So having those challenges, and so with the EcoStruxure IT Expert and ConnectWise plugin, we were able to provide major benefits back to the end customer. through a partner, through a major regional MSP, and that was greater visibility in a vendor agnostic way, predictive assessment of their battery health. So again, going into that UPS score and drilling into the battery health to understand when that battery is going to fail, what we can do to mitigate that battery failing right away. If there's anything we can do, like lowering temperature or other things to mitigate the issues. And then security assessment, as Larry had indicated, to identify those firmware that needs to be updated, and then utilizing the automated work stream of ConnectWise, the ConnectWise plugin that we just did an integration with, to basically automate that workflow in those tickets directly into the ConnectWise managed ticketing system to be able to look at device information, location information, and actually what the critical or warning or informational alarm that comes into that ConnectWise managed system. The second example is a regional value-added reseller that happens to have closed a very large opportunity with a very large office supply retailer with 2,400 stores. And this was really for 1,200 locations. Some of the challenges that they faced were, again, very classic for a use case for EcoStruxure IT Expert. It was limited staff and budget, lack of expertise in store, and really not knowing what to do as far as visibility to their physical critical infrastructure. And they were also looking at, they didn't have the ability to have any kind of a mobile app. They move around quite a bit, and they wanted to see what was going on within the UPSs and the rack PDUs within the different stores that they had. So they didn't have that capability. We introduced the EcoStruxure IT Expert software, cloud-based monitoring and management software, along with the APC Smart Up, UPS, and also APC rack PDUs. So they were deployed in the 1,200 stores that were out there. And so the benefits to the end customer was a consolidated view into the 1,000 plus remote retail store locations. They now had the ability to proactively push firmware updates out to their different stores very, very easily. They had the ability to run assessments on their UPSs and see what devices they had that might have been aging, or what firmware might be outdated and might be vulnerable to attack. And then they also perform predictive analytics, which was what I talked about previously in terms of AI and machine learning, being able to go in there, look at the health of the battery, and then make a determination as to when that battery is actually going to fail to the actual day, year, and month, and then go back to the customer and have that conversation around lifecycle management. How do we plan? How do we budget for this, whether it's replacing a UPS or it's replacing a battery, or it might be something else. So that's the value that we bring in this solution.
This sets up our final segment, partnering for success and future opportunities. Larry, what opportunities does Schneider Electric offer partners to help grow their business?
Before I kind of dive into the specific opportunities, I think it's important just to kind of relay like how we get to that point. So all the stuff we've talked about, it's fairly obvious. It brings value to a customer, to a partner. Some of the things that we find is that a lot of the customers, they don't have a side budget just to go and update their UPSs or put together a day 2 support strategy. One of the things that we need to do that enables us to bring value to the partners is actually help them to kind of create that business need. And we do that through some of our value statements. So some of the things that we typically help educate them on or talk to them about is leveraging data to help drive business outcomes for their customers, or helping them to drive profitability for their customers, but through increased business value. And that could be through reallocating resources or outsourcing stuff that maybe is not core for their business. We've talked a little bit about this, but lowering cost to serve. So helping them to bring some standardization to the support model instead of this ad hoc respond in the moment, which can be very costly. We just started talking a little bit about sustainability. So helping partners to help their customers kind of demystify what sustainability is and making it relevant for their customer. Then wrapping that all up into an approach that really provides flexibility and scalability. So So that's like the baseline that we work with to help the partners to kind of think about or think of this differently, like to change it from just talking about buying an EPS to making a business conversation. So then the question is, well, how do we do that? Well, the way we do that is, first of all, to that concept of flexibility, we actually enable the partners to kind of decide what makes the most sense for them as far as bringing this to market. And that could be, to Peter's second example, of just doing a buy resell. So they just attach our software and services to projects that they're doing today. And then it could be on the whole other end of the scale, a fully integrated, managed power practice being integrated or created by that partner. And what we've done is actually, we have a quiz that they go through and they can kind of answer some questions, and that helps them determine what is the right fit for them. And then we have a digital partner journey that walks them through all the steps that they need to build a business case and why they actually bring that to market, actually implement it within their business, and then actually bring it to market. And then wrapped around that, we have a dedicated digital service team that will actually sit down and work with them to help them through that. That's kind of like how we do it. From a profitability perspective, we also have created a lifecycle rebate, which actually provides back-end dollars to the partners that they can either use to put to their bottom line or to reinvest in growing their business, which is really based on them actually implementing our services and driving renewal rates with their customer. And then lastly, we provide tools for them to actually go bring that to market. So when you bring all those things together, we provide a comprehensive approach for these partners to, again, bring this to market in a way that makes sense for their business. And again, it could be as them all in doing it for themselves, or just kind of sticking their toe in the water and letting us help them do it. But by doing that, it enables them to really do what makes the most sense for them.
For partners watching who want to get started with EcoStruxure, what training programs are available?
There's a couple different methods. So first of all, if they've just signed up to our partner program through My Schneider, which is the main platform that they would use, within that partner program, there's some very basic training. So there's one around software, which covers what we talked about today, which is EcoStruxure IT Expert, but also our full portfolio of products, not just our cloud-based services, but also our on-premise, and also some of our capabilities like our NetBots products, which does environmental and physical security. So that training. Within that digital partner journey I just talked about, we actually have built-in training specific to how to actually position a managed service or actually even implement that managed service. So we have an operations training, a sales training, and even a services training. So if partners wanted to actually do the service themselves, we enable them for that. So, but it all basically goes back to our My Schneider platform and them picking and choosing, which partners training they want to do that makes the most sense for their business.
For partners, this platform can really open up new opportunities for growth and enhance their service offerings. Thank you, Larry and Peter, for joining me. If you would like to learn more about Schneider Electric, visit the website right there on your screen. For the Channel Company, I'm Sydney Neely.